No worries, no worries. So, good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is my first actually live for this year for 2022 after taking a couple of weeks break. And today I am joined by Tyler Robertson, who is the CEO of Diesel Laptops, and all the way from South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. It's almost lunchtime, right, Tyler? So a pleasure for coming. Thank you very much. And tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks, Evan. It still is good morning over here, so
Good morning. Yeah.
we're still coming up. Yeah, so I'm the CEO and founder of a company. We're in the B2B space. So we provide efficiency solutions to people that are fixing commercial trucks and off-highway equipment. So we do that through a variety of ways. Uh, what we are, though, our story here a little bit is 7 years ago, I was working for someone else. I quit my job with a stay-at-home. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. I was the only breadwinner. And I quit my job and worked out of my dining room and living room and kitchen and garage, right, essentially. And it started with
Mm-hmm.
just me. And today we do north of 50 million a year in revenue. We got about 200 employees. So it's just gone very, very fast, and it's been a fun thing that we've been going through over here, and it continues to be a lot of fun. So I'm excited to kind of share some war stories, so to speak.
So you resigned or you fired or whatever, something in between, and you were the only person bringing money. You were the only, wife and the kids. So I suppose some people call you crazy, right?
So here's the story behind that. I was working for someone else. I was doing my side business, and things were going pretty good. But I'm working, 50 hours a week for someone else, 20, 30 hours a week on my side business, not spending much time with my wife and kids,
Yeah.
which I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And what happened is the people I was working for, the essentially she was the owner's daughter, is who I reported to. She was an executive there. She came to me and said, Tyler, good news. We're going to double your bonus this year and give you a 10% raise. And I said, well, that's
Wow.
odd because we just had bonuses and raises a couple months ago. And she goes, I know, but you need to quit your side business and get rid of that. I'm like, well, why? I'm like, am I not performing? What's going on? She's like, no, you're doing great. We just think it's better for us if you don't have that going on because it could potentially hurt our business. So I was like, okay, what do I do? So I think I do what a lot of people do is they call their dad, especially guys, right? And like, Dad, what do I do? I'm the one that makes money, like health insurance, retirement. I've been here 10
Yeah.
years. They pay me good money. What do I do? And he actually said, and he still argues me on this point, but he says, hey, I think you should find a way to like sell that business, the side business, or quit it. You got a stable thing there. You got to think about your kids and family. And he was right. That's definitely the safe and probably maybe the thing I think a lot of people would have done. And then I went and talked to my wife and told her the same story. And she said, you know what? Screw that. Go quit your job tomorrow. She goes, we have no debt. You've been very smart. Worst is it doesn't work, and you go find a job with someone else. And I'm like, you know
Similar
what?
to what you have now. Yes.
Yeah. And she was absolutely right. And the more you think about it, when you work for somebody else, it can be gone at any moment. That company could go bankrupt. It could be bought. It could be merged with somebody. The owner could die. I mean, who knows, right? What could happen? And you don't control your own destiny. You don't control your own fate. And I think that's the big thing a lot of entrepreneurs want is they want control over their life and their time and how they choose to do things. And I'm glad she told me to do that. And I think she pretty much reminds me that about every week that she's the one that told me to do this thing. So she's got that one
Yeah.
on.
And I guess your father told you the right thing from his perspective. He's a father. He don't want you probably, his fatherhood speaks. He don't want you to take risks. You have something steady. You have your family. So I suppose from his perspective, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I don't think I didn't think it'd be this big. I mean, I remember talking to someone I worked with, describing it, and he's like, Tyler, what are you gonna do once everybody has a laptop? Then what? Who do you sell one to? That was our core product at the time. I'm like, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. That's what companies do. And I think it's really shocked everyone on how big our little corner of the world is on what we do. It's
Yeah.
massively larger than I thought it would be when I first started this thing. And we still always say over here, we're not even picking the fruit off the tree yet. We're still picking the fruit off the ground. We need to keep working our way up the tree. So it's a lot of runway ahead of us.
That's a good position to be, I suppose. So why did you turn your office recently with COVID? your conference room, but I think it was your sales room. Why did you turn it into a classroom?
Yeah, it was, again, I'm going to give my wife credit here. I mean, she
I
was,
think you should. I think I should interview her next time.
yeah, maybe. So, I mean, here's the thing, you got to keep in mind, this is back in March and April, things locked down, kids that were in school, I had elementary age kids, they got yanked out and put at home learning, and it was horrible. Teachers didn't know how to do it. The curriculum wasn't there. No one had access to laptop. It was a disaster. My kids learned nothing. And then summer happens, and no one knew. The schools weren't saying, is it in person? Is it hybrid? Is it live, virtual? What are we doing? And I was like, you know what? If my wife's worried about this and I'm worried about this is my kids' education we're talking about here. What about all my employees? What about them? How are they going to deal with this? I have resources that they don't have, and I'm struggling. So, I was like, you know what? I need a plan here, because if they all go do virtual, there's no way me or my wife can teach our kids. There's just no way.
Yes.
So what we did, and I'm like, other parents are the same way. How are they going to work at home and teach their kids during the day? It's impossible. You can't do both. It's not fair to me or the company or the kids. So we said, I'll tell you what, we have extra room now. No one's here in the office. Let's convert one of these rooms. Let's call it Diesel Academy. Let's go change it into an elementary classroom and make it that, all the books and tables and chairs and all the things you need. Let's go hire an elementary school teacher for a short term. And let's go hire a teacher's assistant. And let's just tell all of our employees, look, you don't need to worry about it if it goes virtual, or when there's virtual days, bring your kid to school, bring your kid to work. And you can have them down there. You can have lunch with them. That teacher is going to work them through whatever curriculum's assigned to them. She'll find other things for them to do. It wasn't a babysitting service. It wasn't a daycare. It was a teacher. And we brought in Miss Ginger, and she did a tremendous job guiding all the students through. And we just knew we wanted a little bit of assurance as things were going to zig and zag during the COVID breakdown.
So they would come to the office with their kids, and they go back home with their kids.
They would. A lot of the parents would bring them down for lunch, or they'd take their kids to McDonald's or go get drive-through somewhere, or whatever they did. So there was lunch breaks in there and everything else. And I had a lot of employees just say, hey, thanks for doing that. You didn't have to do that, but it relieved a lot of stress out of my life knowing this was here. And even the ones that didn't use it were appreciated to know they had an option. Yes. That was the big thing, is parents didn't have options. So I really don't know how some parents did it, man. Like teaching their kids, like I'm not a teacher. Like, I'll tell you that right off the bat, at least an elementary school teacher. Business teacher is something different, but it's a tough gig that school teachers have.
Yes, I mean, it's not fair for the kids as well, because you've got, the pandemic made a lot of CEOs and leaders and managers and even frontline employees really overwhelmed, because, unless you were, you really need to be at work, like a nurse or a pilot or a healthcare or whatever, you need to be at home, and it's not easy. You've got personal demands to juggle, simple things, food, cooking, and shall I order food? Shall I cook? Supermarkets. And at the same time, you have your kids, and you don't want to scream at them because you have a meeting to attend and all that. So it's not easy. I mean, I have one kid, and it's not easy. And what I do, I really have to wake up every day, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, which I don't mind, so I can have 3-4 hours quiet to do my core work. But I know it's not easy. And I can imagine if you have 2-3 kids, it's not easy at all.
Yeah. And I think that's the job of any business leader, is to help your employees where you can, right? So everyone's like, I think that it really wasn't that expensive. It was one additional employee, 1.5, and it was a room we weren't using, and we spent a little bit of money
for the furniture together,
right? But it really didn't cost us a lot of money. And I think what we got out of it was a huge ROI in terms of culture and appreciation, employee satisfaction, and all those things. So it was a really great thing we did. And we did other things during COVID as well. We did weekly testing. We had paid for a service to come test every employee once a week.
Right.
In your company. Our employees banded together. They put together a committee to find ways to reduce expenses inside the company. And we had to communicate a lot. So it was just communicate. Let the employees know, here's the company's financial health. Like, you guys are all still going to have jobs. We're going to be okay. Because there was so much uncertainty when you look back almost 2 years ago now. No one knew if we were going to be in business in a couple months, right? So it was a difficult time, to say the least. And
yes,
I think we handled it as well as we could have.
I think so. And as you said, communicate. The worst thing that you can do is become silent during crisis, because people, they will start to question, and they will start to leave, and they will start to look for jobs. And the worst thing that you can do, I suppose, is to add more uncertainty on the uncertainty. So, and I guess another benefit of that classroom is it's good marketing for your company in the local community, because I suppose your employees will talk about it.
Yeah, I will say we definitely got some mileage just on the marketing side of that thing. I mean, it wasn't the intent, but it was a great side effect. So local news and some articles written and some of those things. And I'm just glad we were able to do it. I'm glad we were able to just solve a little bit of somebody's problem besides my own. But it was a good thing, and I continue to hope other companies look at things like that. And I think one of the things that's been unique about us as a company to begin with is we always look at things differently. So we looked at a problem and we said, hey, how can we turn this problem into a solution? And we've done that with our customers, our products and services we offer, and we did that with COVID. So, there's always those silver linings in anything. And I think a lot of good silver linings came out of COVID for Diesel Laptops and a lot of our employees.
Yeah, it's the mindset. I think what it starts with your mindset. As you said, you turned an opportunity into a solution, and having the mindset to support your people, because as you said, maybe some of your employees might not have the resources that you have to take care of your kids, because you could easily hire the teacher for your own kids to stay at home, right?
Yeah, we talked about that too. We're like, hey, why don't we go on one of these websites and hire a retailed teacher, and we'll just have a teacher show up at our house every day. And I knew I could do those things. My wife's like, well, I don't like strangers in the house and that thing. And there's all kinds of pros and cons to everything. But I think too often people look at a problem or a situation and just assume that's what it is. And what people don't realize is when there's a problem, it means there's opportunities to do things. So it's amazing when you start looking at it through a different lens, how often a problem is really an opportunity to create a business, create a product, create a service, and make money off of it. I mean, one of the big ones, I just saw it yesterday. I saw diesel technicians are almost impossible to get. And now we're seeing a flurry of recruiting companies just pivot to, we specialize in diesel technicians, right? And that's what they're selling as a service. And people are signing up for it because they can't find it themselves. There's always money to be made when there's a problem. You just got to do it ethically and find the right solutions and all those things that go along with it. But you just got to keep your eyes open and think differently.
Yeah, so I guess it's like use COVID as a time to reflect, and then I suppose guide your team to new normals, new protocols, new procedures, new purpose in a way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when you start looking at it through differently, you start looking at other things like, why do we do that? Why does that happen? I mean, one of the comical things here is, restaurants are like, oh, you have to wear a mask to come in, and you wear a mask for the first 18 steps, and you sit at your table and you have no mask on the rest of the time. You're like, what did we really accomplish here? Like, is that whose solution was this? So, you always need to look at things and just kind of use common sense. That's been our side of it, and always question the status quo. And I don't think there's anything wrong with questioning the status quo. And I think it's a good thing, because that's how change happens. And that's how new things become, when people start questioning things like they should. And I think it's an important thing. I think a lot of people lose that especially as they get older.
Yeah. So, and I suppose that mentality and the fact that you provided that support and that service to your employees, I suppose it helped you and your company to tailor your brand story to a new reality.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I think if I look back on it, I think our employees saw what we were doing there. We were communicating daily on revenue numbers and gross margin numbers to the employees. And we call it the red line. We were like, we need to sell this much on this chart per day to break even. That's our break even number. And if we can't get there, things are going to get ugly. So here's the number. Let's all do our part to get to that number. And even today, we just changed it for 2022. 2022 is the first year we actually gave formal bonus plans to all the employees. And the numbers based off the revenue. And the fact is, there's some big bogeys out there. And the great thing now is we struggled before to get employees to appreciate the strategic plan and what's in it and why we're getting there. Now, when we couple that on top of, well, here's the bonus plan if we get there, they're all asking the right questions now. And it's, how do we get to that number right there? Because I know what that means in my paycheck. And that's exactly the questions I want them asking. And we're getting them all thinking in the right way. So it's taken us a while to get there. But I think it's all compounding up on culture, strategic direction, the leadership, the management. You got to get all those pieces working together to be effective as a company.
Absolutely. Leadership is like, when you go to those weddings and in the middle of the reception, you have the chocolate fountain, the fondue. If the chocolate on top is good, the rest will be good, right?
Yep.
So that's how sometimes I describe leadership.
Yeah, and leadership's a tough thing. I mean, I've learned so much about myself the last year and the year before that and the year before that, and it makes me realize I thought I knew everything, and now I realize I knew nothing. And I
Yes.
know I'm at the same stage as you grow and you learn as a company, and that's another difficult thing. As your company grows, you have to constantly reinvent yourself and understand what's important and where you should spend your time and why you should spend your time there. And it's a tough thing to do, but it's things you have to grow and change if you want your company to grow and change. And a lot of people get stuck not growing and changing, thus their company doesn't grow and change, or their professional life doesn't, or their personal life. But that's really what life is. You got to really look at it and think, how can I be a little bit better?
You need, if I can share, a successful leader should always have a student mindset. And in one of his books, you probably know him, Marshall Goldsmith. He's around 75 years old now. He's the number one executive coach. He wrote a book just before the pandemic, I think, that he said, and the title is "What Got You Here Won't Get You There."
Yep.
And it exactly describes what you said. If you come with the attitude of that's how we've always done it, you're not going to go far. Things have changed massively. Management style, leadership, communication, everything. I remember myself, 10 years ago, I was the alpha male leader. Different people psychology. The market was different. Now I'm different, and I'm learning every day. And it's all about the mindset of having a student mentality.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about sales in your industry and probably in your country, in your state. During the pandemic, did the selling cycle shortened or became longer? Wow, how that affected?
Yeah, I can tell you what kind of changed. So number one, we've never had people actually out physically visiting customers to show our products and services. And we're in B2B sales selling $10,000 tools. That's our core product.
Right.
And everyone else in our industry does physical sales out in the field going product, but it's a horrible way to do it because you can't scale it. So they're expensive to scale. You got to put a lot of people in the field, and they can only talk to so many people per day and all that. So our salespeople, they're not allowed to travel. This before COVID, they were like, you don't travel. You don't need to go on site and show them a demo and do all these things. Sell it this other way that we've developed over here. And they're very successful doing that. So when COVID happened, we didn't have to change our sales approach at all. We always did only basically online marketing is really how we drove our revenue and our leads. So that didn't change too much. What did change though was a couple things. One, because as you recall, China, Italy, and Spain got shut down kind of first when COVID happened.
Yeah, Italy was pretty bad. Yeah.
That was Italy. Our largest product that we sell comes out of Italy, right out of Venice. So we were like, okay, well, if they're not even working, how are we even going to get product? What are we going to sell? That's our core product. How are we going to survive? Even if we're here, Italy's not. They've shut down. And Spain was the second country. And we pull a lot of product from China. So if we can't get product, what do we sell? So one of the things we did is we went back to our old customers and we said, hey, all you guys that bought this, if you're not using your product you bought, we'll actually buy it back from you because we got other customers that want to buy it. And we thought that'd be a huge thing because people may have a product sitting around and need cash or who knows. And surprisingly, hardly anyone took us up on that offer. So we were like, great, what are we going to do when we run out of product, not if? And we had to pivot into selling other products and services. So our team got a lot more focused on, hey, you bought something from us a year ago. You no longer get updates. You no longer get support. Would you like to get updates and support? And by the way, we have these new things. Buy a renewal package from us. And all of a sudden we figured out, hey, wow, we got a lot of other products we should have been selling all along here. So one of those silver linings of COVID. And all of a sudden our renewal department sales just took off. We looked really hard at alternative options that cost a lot less money. And we brought some new products on to help fill the gaps as well. Yeah. So COVID really forced us to look at what we sell and where we source products. And again, one of the silver linings that came out of that was we said, we can't be tied down to just one manufacturer for a product. We got to go find alternative manufacturers for when things do go bad. And another story along that line is right when COVID happened, right before the lockdown, we signed the largest deal in our industry in like world history. No one customer has ever committed to buy as much product from us as this deal we just signed, and we've been working on it for 3 years. So COVID happens, we get our first purchase order for, I don't know, $1 million, first of many. And we go to the manufacturer like, hey, we need product. Like, we don't have any. And we were short these cables. So these cables, which are like, $100 each, and they need seven different ones for this $10,000. That's all we were missing was these cables. And Italy shut down, China shut down, Spain shut. Like, well, now what do we do? We don't do manufacturing in the US. We called some manufacturers. Nobody could find the parts and pieces, and everyone's locked down. No one can build them. We're like, great. We just spent 3 years, and you're telling me we're going to hold up this $1 million purchase order because I can't get these 7 little cables for each kit. Like, there's got to be a solution, guys. And to our team's credit, they went and researched it, and they went and found out, you know what, Tyler, we can build these pieces. They're not going to look, we can buy these pieces. We can hand make the cables here. It's going to take a little bit of effort and time, and, making things one at a time by hand's a lot more costly and time consuming than building 100 at a factory. But our team, to their credit, we hired some additional employees. We transitioned some, and we called it New China was the department we called it, because literally people are back there hand making cables just to take care of this one customer. And in hindsight, that customer, they were really upset when we told them we couldn't deliver the order because of COVID. They hadn't had that problem with, you go, we don't have this problem with any other supplier. Why is it you guys? And we're like, well, we explained, and then they called back 3 weeks later. They go, okay, never mind. It's everybody now. You guys are just ahead of it. So we appreciate you working through the problem. But yeah, so, interesting stories there. But again, there was a problem, there was a solution, and it all ended up working out. And we have a customer for a long, long time that appreciates what we went through to get that order fulfilled for him.
Yeah. So you say that COVID, like, your business is doing better than before during this. Yeah.
So back when March and April happened, when you own a business, your worst nightmare is your revenue kind of does this thing, right? And then it just drops off. That's your worst nightmare. Like, it's all gone tomorrow. But logically, you always say that's not going to happen. If it went up slow, every company I've ever seen has kind of had the slow decline, right? Like, that's the way it would work if things go the other way. But then COVID happened. And what did COVID do? It went like this, and then it went like this. So, you have that little bit of panic mode. And, I was worried about it. And obviously we did what we could and pivoted and sold stuff, and we reduced inventory quickly, and we did all kinds of things, put a lot of cash in the bank and drew down credit lines. And we did everything I think that we needed to do to make sure we just had a pile of cash to ride this thing out for however long it lasts. And, once we had all that money kind of in a bank account, and because I ran my company debt free, I had empty credit lines to begin with. So we were able to really conserve a lot of cash. And you look back at what happened with COVID, obviously things took off. Our company kept executing, and we grew 30% during COVID, the first year in 2020. And I think a lot of that's just the testament of our employees and what we went through over here, because we took some pretty big hits in March and April and May, but it came roaring back. And 2021, we just ended that year up almost another 30% from the year before. So things are still all going in the right direction. And a lot of it too was we cut expenses we didn't know we needed. So for example, I used to do 50 trade shows a year. It would cost us $500,000 to $750,000 a year to do trade shows. And then COVID happened. We canceled all the trade shows, and we realized we still get sales leads. We still grew our business a lot, and I didn't go spend $500,000 to do it.
Sometimes these trade shows are a bit of waste of time, right? I think this is what people realize during. I talk from financial industry, and there's a lot of these expos and all that, but sometimes it's really a waste of time.
It is,
right?
It is, because it's funny. We love the big shows, right? We do big booths and do VIP events.
Yes. You sponsor the
Yeah, you get caught up in the whole thing.
Yes.
But all of our analytics have shown us the best ROI we have on any shows we do are actually the small regional ones, where we have like a little 8-foot table and someone shows up for a day or two and just talks to customers, because we have low overhead and usually get some good traffic in there, and you end up selling a lot of stuff. So our company going forward, we'll do a couple of those small little regional ones as things pop up where we have employees available. And we're not going to do 50 trade shows a year. We're going to do 6 or 8, and we're going to pick the ones that are most important to us.
Yeah, I think the economy now local is the new global. In terms of the supply chain, in terms of sales, in terms of marketing, in terms of resources.
Well, one of the other big things we did there, and I'd always wanted to do it, but I just never had a good reason or time. And I always wanted to have our own show for the company. And as soon as COVID happened, that was our first thing, was let's do an annual virtual truck repair expo. Nobody does virtual expos at this point. So we did one like right away. I think May is when we did it. We had 2,500 people show up to it, which we were really excited about.
Yeah.
It ended up costing us nothing. Actually, any money we made, we actually donated. We made the vendors pay to be there to have a virtual booth. We donated all the money to charity. So it was a great thing to get a lot of information to people in over a 2-day period. And then we did the second year. And you know what happened? The volume doubled. Now we had 5,000 people show up for the event in our second year. And this third year, we actually partnered up with one of our strategic partner companies that we work with from in our space to a degree, but we're very complementary. And they were doing a virtual event, and we were doing one. Like, hey, why don't we combine together? We can probably get 10,000 people at an event this year. So again, another silver lining there is we found a new marketing opportunity, and essentially we have a annual show that'll bring 10,000 people to with my name and product in front of it, and it ends up costing me nothing besides time and effort from our employees' ends on our side. And it's a great thing we do for our industry. So again, where there's problems, there's opportunity.
Yes. And I suppose the management style that somebody needs to have and the attitude is to really and to trust employees with new responsibilities to execute.
Yeah, that's been one of my, I keep telling people the only reason we're not even better than we should be is because I've held this back. And they kind of look at me weird because they look at me as the leader and all these things, but it's the truth. So for example, I wanted to be, we needed to figure out how to be a better software company than we have been. Well, I don't know what a software company looks like, man. I work in truck shops. Like I know what a truck shop looks like. I don't know what a software company looks at. And we tried ourselves. It didn't work. We brought in somebody else. He wasn't the right person. And then I tried a little bit again for myself. And I really started talking to a lot of people that own software companies and really figuring out more, what should a software company look like? How should they be managed? What roles do we need? What experience, what skill sets? And then I realized, okay, now I know what I need. We made some mistakes. Let's go do this the right way. So we made the decision as a company, hey, let's go throw $1 million in expenses on payroll, and let's go hire a manager of engineering. Let's go hire scrum masters. Let's figure out agile. Let's say hire a VP of engineering. Let's go do these things. And if we do those things, you know what? I can look back now. That was only 6 or 9 months ago. Best $1 million we ever spent. Now we totally looking like a software company. We're executing and we're bringing products to market much quicker, better products. It's going much better. But it's a tough thing to do as a business owner, is just to get out of your own way. And as your business grows, you have to not do things that you're comfortable doing and easy to do for you. And you got to let someone else do them. You got better things to do with your time. And that's a really difficult thing. A lot of people just never do.
Yeah. So to get out, to put your ego down. That's what you mean, I think, as well, right?
Yeah. I thought as I was growing my company, I knew the best way to do things, and I'd show employees. And then I'd come back 6 months later, a year later, and they're not doing it anything like I told them to do it. Remember the first couple of times I was kind of upset. But I was like, well, wait a second. Let's really look at that. And you know what? They were doing it better than I was doing it. And rightfully so. That's why I pay them to be thinkers and to be people engaged and make my company better. So we constantly talk about over here, like, how can we be just a little bit better? We can be a little bit better every week. We'll be miles ahead of where everybody else is by the end of the year, the end of the decade, the end of whatever. We just got to keep working on the business, not in the business. And it's a difficult mentality.
Yeah, this is exactly. You hit the nail on the head. And the day-to-day running of the business, especially to kind of SMEs, small, medium companies, it is. I think a lot of leaders and managers are finding, and owners are finding it really difficult to work on the business because they're so occupied and in the business, and sometimes it's their own fault. Micromanagement, controlling everything, and they don't have the opportunity to take a helicopter view and see what is going on because they're so occupied with the day-to-day stuff. And in essence, it might look like it's a good thing, but it could holding them back.
Yeah. So here's the truth of the matter. If there's a business owner or manager listening to this, at the base level, what you need to know to be successful, whether it's your business or whatever, you need to know your products and your market, right? There's no doubt you need to understand those things.
Yes.
But the piece that you need to work on usually isn't the products or the market. The thing you need to work on is your operational systems, your culture, all these other pieces that make the machine work, right? Yes. So, for the example I use for people is look at McDonald's, right? Everyone probably knows the whole Ray Kroc McDonald's story, but the important piece I don't think people realize is really why did McDonald's able to flourish and grow? It's because they changed their processes on how they make food and deliver it to people. It wasn't the marketing. It wasn't the Ronald McDonald. It was because they were so efficient at doing that. mean, look at Amazon. Why didn't Amazon grow so big so fast in terms of like the products you buy on Amazon.com? It's because they're really freaking efficient at getting you that product quickly and easily to your door. They worked on the process and systems for years before it grew, but they did the right thing. They played the long-term game. And anyone that owns any business, if you just start working on processes and systems, culture, and all these pieces inside your company, I guarantee you that's what will get you to the next level and allow you to keep growing. And it's a nonstop thing. And we just switched our CRM system. The year before that, we switched our phone system. Now we're switching our complete ERP system. But we have to do those things. They're working fine, but you hit thresholds and you hit things where it's like, I can't get to the next level unless I fix that operational system. So you have to do those things as a company.
And probably in 10 years, you will have to change them again or something.
You have to
evolve. You have to evolve, right?
Your company needs to evolve, and you need to evolve as a leader, and your managers need to evolve as managers and leaders as well. You have to keep pushing that forward. Otherwise, you're never going to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't want to give my feedback on this, but why do you think some managers, we're optimistic, but why do you think some business owners are not evolving?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's get caught up in the day-to-day, right? Yeah. They're just putting out fires all day long, and they're doing the same thing they've always done every day in and day out, right?
Yes.
And for some people, maybe that's fine. Maybe they're happy with it. It's a lifestyle business. They hit a threshold and they're comfortable, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the people that are struggling, that want to grow and are stuck in there, it's them they need to look at. It's not the employees. It's not the market understanding. It's not whatever system. It's they're the ones that are holding it back. They got to shift their mindset in order to do that. And I can give some examples there too. As we were growing, I hired a sales manager. He got me from essentially 0 million a year in revenue to 20 million a year in revenue. And we kind of got stuck there for a little bit. And he was one of the people that went through our management training and cultural stuff we were doing to try to figure this stuff out. And, you could just tell he wasn't fully engaged. He was a sales guy at heart, right? He helped get my thing going, but he's really a sales guy. Right. And, I had to have what I thought was going to be a tough conversation to say, hey, you can't lead my sales team anymore. Thank you for getting me to 0 to 20 million, but you're not my guy to get me to 40 million. And I thought that'd be a hard conversation to have. He was relieved. He was excited. It's like, thank you for telling me, because I don't like this anymore. I like selling. I liked managing a couple people. Now that there's a bunch of them, he goes, I do not like this at all. I need to do what I'm good at, and that's sell for you.
Tyler, when I was in the UK, I was managing sales teams. I was 25 years old. And the best salesperson I had, and it happened to me many times, he was great at sales, but he could not teach anyone to sell.
Yep.
And I did the buddy system. I went out on the field with some members of his team, and the way they were pitching and closing, they tried to copy him so much, but their personality, it didn't match what he was doing.
Yep.
So he was the best performer, and you'd be surprised sometimes, when it comes to sales coaching with some of my clients, some people that are really good at sales, and the people who are naturally good, they find it very difficult to teach others to do so.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And just because someone's good at a certain skill set doesn't mean they're great at being a manager or a leader. So I think anyone that's ever worked somewhere has seen that. I worked at dealerships. Hey, he's a great diesel tech. Let's make him the manager of the department. Those are two totally different skill sets that person needs. And hey, that person's great at selling. Let's make him a sales manager. Well, not necessarily. Like let's not put him into a role where he doesn't have his strengths. So you see people make that mistake, unfortunately, quite a bit, where they just go bring up their best performer and make them a leader and a manager. And I can tell you this, my experience, more often than not, that fails pretty horrendously. And again, it doesn't move your company forward. It usually keeps them stuck in gear, or sometimes even slides back.
So what did you do with this guy? Did you let him go, or you put him back into sales?
No, I was like, I would say this, his name's William. I was like, man, this is the best salesperson I ever knew, right? I said that before. That's how someone introduced him to me. Is that he's the best salesperson. So I brought him in. I'm like, man, this guy really knows his stuff. I'm bringing him in here to sell for me. And of course, as he got going, he wanted to keep expanding, and so he kept hiring people and kept reporting them. So we just said, hey, I'll tell you what, William, how about we just give you all the large national accounts that you've been working anyway? And by the way, we think there's a much more business you can go get in that space. and we'll just pay you 100% commission. And he's like,
Yeah.
you know what, deal. And I can say he probably makes 3 times, 4 or 5 times as much as he would being a manager, and he's happy, we're happy.
Fantastic.
And it all worked out. But I mean, again, you talk about ego. He probably had to check his ego at the door to let people know, like, I'm not the manager anymore. I'm here to sell. But it worked out. Once you can get rid of that ego, things seem to resolve.
And fair play to him. Fair play to him. At least he accepted it. I think he was self-aware, right? He had that self-awareness.
And the biggest reason he didn't tell me earlier is he didn't want to disappoint me. He said, that's the only reason I never brought this up, Tyler. Like, I appreciate everything you've done for us. I love the company. I don't want to hurt the company. And I thought if I told you, you would just be disappointed and be a bad thing for us. So again, he was relieved. He was excited.
Yeah. Excellent. So, so I wanted to ask you something, but I forgot when you're talking about. I wanted to ask you something related to this. So just before we wrap up, what are your, if you don't mind sharing, you don't have to share details, but what are your plans, for your company for the next year or for the next, 24 months? What are you going to do?
Yeah. So we have a 3-year strategitic plan. At first, we were going to make a 5-year plan, but then we realized we haven't been in business for 5 years. Let's do a 3-year plan. So we have a 3-year plan to at the top level. It's to get to 100 million a year in revenue. That's where we want to get to, and we need to have products that don't exist today or have just started to exist to have about 20 million a year in revenue. So that really allows us to bring that message down to the rest of the company and allows us to say, hey, these are the things that are important to us and these are the things we need to do. And then, of course, we put bonus plans this year for all the employees to hit certain numbers. And it's really helped because now all the employees are asking, man, how do we hit that number? Because that's where they get big paychecks and they're pretty substantial bonus payouts if we can execute. And I have full confidence in our team's going to go execute this year.
Fantastic. I wish you the best. So, what I wanted to say about the salesperson who, some excellent salespeople that cannot sell is sometimes you see the same phenomenon in professional sport. Sometimes some great, especially in soccer, football, right? Soccer in Europe, in England, in Italy, in Spain. Some fantastic top class, football players when they retire at 40, 45, they can't manage. And you've got some of the greatest managers in soccer, like Mourinho or Sir Alex Ferguson, Manchester United. They were not very good football players. They were probably on the bench, or they were never fantastic football players. They had a very average career. No one knew them before they became coach, and they are top managers.
Yeah, you see that a lot in the NBA and other professional sports in the US as well, right? And it's always kind of eye-opening to see that, and people, it's amazing how much knowledge people have there on the physical attributes, especially when you look at physical sports like that. So I agree. It's about, you got to put the right people in the right seat, whether it's the head coach or not. And I've always said this about head coaches. I have no idea how they're able to manage a bunch of millionaires out there, really people in their 20s and 30s, and get them motivated to go execute and do these things. So those guys have a difficult job ahead of them in the professional sports world. And another great event thing I just saw, Nick Saban, they just lost the National College Championship game here. And he did his press conference? He gave utmost respect to the leadership on his team for what they accomplished this year. So it's seeing how your leadership reacts and acts in front of people goes a long way.
They put the team interest above the individual interest. And, it's not easy to manage 25-year-old sports players, millionaires with big egos and 10 girls behind them and 5 Ferraris in the car park, So, but they are strong people, they are strong people. And they know how to infuse the right culture. They know how to unite, and they know how to put the people with them. Some of them great, if you look at cases like Mourinho or Alex Ferguson, players love to play for them. And I actually wrote something like that on LinkedIn. I'm trying to open up the article about Manchester United. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the football scene in Europe or in the UK, but after Alex Ferguson, all the United managers appointed after him struggled. and they only kind of achieved 3 major trophies after him because he retired, and there is a guy, there is a football player that was interviewed recently, and he said, why do you think you guys are not performing? You have the best talent, you have the biggest budget. And the player said, I think we have good quality, but not a decent chemistry with each other, and overall we don't have a good mentality. And I think this is the main reason why they are struggling, because they're so good individually, but whoever is in charge so far is failing to make them united, as the name says. And I think this is a major key of a CEO, of a manager, of a leader, to unite, right?
It's the exact same as business, right? You have to have all the employees rowing the boat in the same direction and having the right attitudes. You have to have the right processes and structures in place, and you have to have the right management. I've always said this, a similar analogy with the NFL. Why is it when you look at NFL history, there's really like a third of the NFL teams that win all the championships? Why is that? Well, they have the culture, they got stability, they got the right processes. I mean, they just have it down. And that's really what it comes down to in a lot in business and life and everything, is you got to have the right mentality, the right processes, the right everything in front of you in order to go execute. And sometimes, unfortunately, people miss that piece.
My last question to you, we're approaching 45 minutes. Do you believe in personal charisma? Do you think charisma plays a role?
Yeah, I mean, charisma obviously plays a role, right? I mean, I've talked to plenty of people. They ask questions about my business and they walk away saying, man, you are just so passionate about it. I'm like, well, I'm excited. I love my business. I love talking about these things. This is what drives me. So yeah, I think you have to have, I don't know, charisma or passion, or, there's some definitely things in there that come through. I mean, look at some of the great leaders that people know about, the Elon Musk of the world, right? They obviously have charisma and passion for what they do and what they're trying to accomplish, and people understand their why. And I think that's really where charisma comes from, is why do I do this? And that's an important piece that people sometimes miss in the conversation.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you know the Alexander the Great story. He was in the middle of 3,000 years ago. Alexander the Great, the Greek emperor, he was in the middle of a desert marching with 5,000 troops, and they ran out of water in what today is Iran, Persia. And his general said, my king, you stay here. I will take the best horses and the best men. 5 of the men will go find water for you. You take rest here with the rest of your crew. 5,000 people in the desert back in the days, like 3,000 years ago. And after a couple of days, they got back, and the general took out his helmet, put fresh water, and gave him to the king. And you know what he did? He took the water and dropped it on the floor, and everyone was ecstatic. And you know what he said? Give people to my water first.
Yeah.
Give water to my people first.
Yeah, I mean, eaters eat last, right? I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. There's a book on it, and very good, very similar story. It's you have to put everyone else in front of you first, which is the right thing to do in the long run, right? And I think a lot of times people try to put, especially leaders, sometimes put themselves first and do things they shouldn't be, but that's usually where you get in trouble, and that's usually where companies don't win. So if people do exactly like Alexander the Great, they tend to have companies around for a long time and tend to be a lot more successful.
Or probably you, what you do, from what I see. Excellent, Tyler. Thank you very much. It's an honor.
Yeah,
thank you for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot again. Take care. Bye for now.